Right, people, I can just about get back on here, I suppose. The last video on the Serapeum where I did an update, sadly I had to take that video down. It was a message from YouTube saying that it couldn't be monetized. A specific part of the video, which was only about 6 seconds long, I had to remove that via their own personal app. So I did that, and somehow it ended up removing 2/3 of the beginning of the video. Only the ending on it, it just didn't make sense. And anyway, I ended up taking it down. I didn't even know that's what happened to it due to me not being on YouTube for a while, due to what's been happening on my end. So I said I was going to look at the Aswan Quarry. And by the way, I am still interested in history. It was probably going to take a couple of videos to get moving back, but I am still interested in finding out what's happened in the past and trying to prove all these people wrong that suddenly got into this topic. But in terms of the Aswan Quarry here, my opinion has not changed on this thing at all. You know my thoughts on people today or in the past just deciding to carve out huge pieces of stone from some quarry, because even though this, I've just labelled this the Aswan Quarry, that's just the name of this site, yeah? This wasn't a quarry, as in carving rock away. I'll try to show you what it might have been, but it certainly wasn't for cutting stone away, and that's because you cannot go to a site where there's some, let's say, granite. That's what most people say this was. You can't go to an area and expect to cut out a huge piece of stone like this, not for it to have any flaws in it, all right? Cracks and holes just running through certain areas. You would not be able to find a big enough piece like this, where you'd have to cut out probably 1,000 megaliths like this, yeah, to find one that didn't have any flaws in it. So you wouldn't do that. So you'd have to make this in some other way, which is what this video is about here. One of the main things that I pointed out years ago when I first got onto this, being what I think it is anyway, even though it's that far out, but you can see the line that runs all the way around this here. The shapes that most people think is from, in this field anyway, from some type of huge machine that's been able to somehow dig this hard rock out, grind it away without any kind of scratch marks and all, just make it look like, I don't know. But if you look at the line that runs all the way around on the right, you can even see how it splays over, as if this is not original, like it's been dumped on top of here. It almost looks like what you'd expect if it was some type of Play-Doh, yeah, like this was soft. Something got removed from here in the past, and then the new stuff was dumped on top of it. That's the only reason for that line being there, and it being a gap. Now, you can see what I think it is. This is far out, obviously it is, but these do indeed look like giant fingerprints, right? Even to this day. Now, I have debunked a lot of the stuff because I was into mud fossils, right? You know, most of you know my thoughts on that. Flesh does not and never will. Blood, I don't care what they say, turn to stone, right? Bones may petrify. Wood petrifies in certain circumstances. That's why I made that playlist. I can only point out what I see, right? And if it's too much for people to handle, then fine, don't watch the video. In fact, this is the main artifact why I began making videos on this channel, right? There was one video that I put on here first, which has since been removed from, just due to it being bad quality. But this was a second video, right? Now, even from the side here, if these were in fact fingerprints, like this stuff was like Play-Doh, if you can imagine, when you're grinding this stuff out with your fingers, moving it back and forward, where your bottom two knuckles are, where your nail is, and then the second one, as you're grinding it out, it would leave an indentation, yeah? If you were trying to squeeze an oblong into shape, like this thing is, yeah, these are the exact same things, shapes that you will create if you were doing something like that, now obviously this stuff would have to be literally like Play-Doh right before it hardened. And that's probably why it was left, because they left it too long. So there was no point in removing it because it would just destroy it, or they couldn't move it, right? Because it weighed 1,000 ton and it was still connected to the site. And it did have flaws in it. And the only way that these flaws can actually be here in the first place is because this stuff was soft. If you remember being at school, I can only go by that, right? Because I've never worked with clay, okay? But people that work with clay, if you leave it too long and you work with it, it cracks, right? You have to work with it when it's still softish. If you leave it to dry too much and form shapes in it, it will form cracks and dry that way. As you're drying it out, it will just crack along its surface, and that, I think that's why they've left it. Now, if you look here where the fingertips would have been, why are those lines there? It's almost like this big oblong thing that's been shaped on top. A fresh piece was put on top of it, like I'm showing here, and then they squeezed it into shape. What these markings are here with these, what look like fingerprints, I don't think are. I just find it interesting, that's all. What they are, I don't know, but it's just something else that goes against this machinery. In fact, when you actually put two and two together, sit and think about it, there is no machine even today that you could do something like this unless it was soft. But that said, there are other areas along this entire site which even go against what I'm presenting here. Now, I can come up with many theories as to why there would be areas like this if a site's been used for a long time. There was going to be many different markings from all types of techniques and technology and all sorts of different stuff. Okay, so just because you see one thing somewhere doesn't explain everything. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around. I will get back to you as soon as possible.